We welcome you back to Your Money. I'm Rick Sanchez. The July jobs report is out, and we are, look, let's face it, we're still hurting as a country. 51,000 people lost jobs in July alone. That brings the total just this year to nearly 500,000 jobs lost. 500,000 jobs, 500,000. Unemployment hit a 4-year high. Manufacturing, housing, retail, all hit hard. Bottom line, is it not easy right now to try and have or get a job in this economy? Which is why you better pay attention to this next guest that we got for you. He can get you the job that you want, even in these tough times. Joining us now is Brad Karsh. She has literally written the book, Confessions of a Recruiting Director, The Insider's Guide to Landing Your First Job. Brad, thanks so much for being with us. There are people out there, Brad, who are wondering why they're not getting hired, and it's starting to get into their head. So it becomes kind of an emotional thing, and it makes it harder to find a job. What do they do?
Right. Things are tough right now, and the fact of the matter is there are more people applying to fewer jobs. So from the perspective of the job candidate, one of the common laments that I hear over and over again is I send out resume after resume after resume, and I never hear from anyone. I send out 30, 50, 100 resumes. No one calls me back. And what I like to say is, from your perspective, it sort of seems like they're not that into you, just kind of like the whole dating scenario. You send the resumes out, and you never hear. And the question is why? You know, why don't you hear? There are a couple reasons. One, sheer volume. You've got a lot of people applying to a very few number of jobs. And at the most popular companies out there, it's not uncommon to get 500, 1,000, 2,000 resumes for just one position. So the sheer boundaries of space and time prevent a recruiting director from getting back in touch with every single candidate.
Yeah, but you understand, by the way, that when that happens to someone, you could explain to them a million times how this is a numbers game and all that other stuff, but still, they start to get kind of depressed, right?
Right, and it is. And what I do advise people is don't take it personally, because this is happening to everybody in every scenario and in every situation. You're not going to hear back. And if you go into the mindset of sending your resume out, recognizing that most times you're not going to hear back, then you feel much better about it, and you can feel really excited when you do happen to hear back. Now, that being said, you don't want to just let the numbers play out for themselves. There's some things that you can do.
Like?
One of the things that you want to make sure, one of the things that you want to make sure you do is have someone help you with that job. And by that, I mean networking. Networking is still the single best way to get a job. 2 out of 3 people get their jobs through networking. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody's going to give you a job just because you know somebody, but what it means is you have a much greater opportunity of getting the chance to interview for that job if somebody sends your resume on to HR. So instead of you sending it over the internet, you get someone in the company forwarding it on your behalf.
Sounds like it's all about contacts. You also talk a lot about making yourself more hireable. What do you mean by that term, hireable?
Recruiting directors want to put a round peg in a round hole. And I know it sounds basic, and I know it sounds easy, but what you want to make sure you do is make yourself the easiest possible hire. The best way to do that is look at the job description. And I tell job seekers that the job description is basically a cheat sheet for your application to that company. If they're looking for somebody with certain specific skills and in certain specific areas, make sure you highlight that on your resume. So don't write your resume from the perspective of you. You have to write your resume from the perspective of the recruiting director at the company where you want to work.
Brad Karsh, thanks so much. Great information. There are people right now taking copious notes, I'm sure, and there's probably too many of them that we'd like to know.